Good morning, everyone. I hope you're staying happy and healthy. Today, we're going to be going over the expansion of America westward in the 1800s. Now, when I say the expansion of the country westward, I don't mean toward Nebraska or California. That's a few years away from where we're at. We're talking about how America expanded toward Michigan, Missouri, and Arkansas, when those states were considered to be the frontier. Between 1790 and 1820, the population of the United States had doubled, about 10 million people at that time. And they wanted to build a life for their families. A lot of people came here from Europe looking for a better life. And they couldn't find that on the East Coast where farmland was really expensive. So the best way to do this was to head west and find cheap or even sometimes free land. But this journey was not without its dangers. They faced starvation, harsh weather, attacks by Native Americans, and even animal attacks. Um, After Ohio had finally become a state, they had asked Congress to build a road to connect them with the rest of the country. This became known as the National Road, but its construction is going to take over 12 years before it could even reach Ohio. In the meantime, though, private companies had begun building their own roads, what we call toll roads or turnpikes, and those charge the users a fee to travel on those roads. And then those roads would be built usually using things like crushed stone or even logs. As you can imagine, not the most comfortable ride. And while roads were relatively new, America did have an abundance of natural rivers upon which commerce was already being conducted. You see, traveling on rivers was more comfortable than those bumpy roads, but it did have a few disadvantages in that, first of all, you had to travel with the current of the river. And also, those rivers aren't everywhere, and most rivers in America flowed north to south, leaving anyone who wanted to go east to west having to use those bumpy roads. So a man named Robert Fulton from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, he had a solution with his invention called the steamboat engine. And in 1807, he had a fully operational steamboat going. And so now the current no longer dictated what direction you had to travel on a river. But what if you wanted the river to flow right next to your factory so that ships could drop off raw materials and then pick up the finished goods and then take them to market? Well, you needed that river next to your factory, but if there is no river next to your factory, then the solution was to build a canal. Now, canals have been around since ancient times. Mesopotamians built them for irrigation around 4000 BC, and the Chinese were even using them to transport goods as early as the 8th century BC. Here in the United States, though, it took a businessman named DeWitt Clinton from New York, and he proposed linking New York City with the Great Lakes using a canal system. His idea would eventually become the 363-mile-long Erie Canal. Canals use a series of locks, separate compartments that raise and lower the water in places where the terrain goes up and down. And DeWitt's dream of the Erie Canal only took 8 years to come to fruition, as people could finally travel from Lake Erie all the way to New York City. By the 1840s, the Erie Canal had expanded and reinforced so that it could handle steamboats. And just 10 years after that, the United States would have over 3,600 miles of canals stretching from New York City all the way to Illinois. With the expansion of the canal system, Americans could now live farther and farther away from the East Coast than ever before. All right, so that's all our notes for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and making sure that you continue to do so. I'll be using these notes for our upcoming quizzes and tests. Have a great day.